Good morning, afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are joining us today. Welcome to today's CC-Webinar.Live keynote presentation and Q&A session. Thank you for joining. We will be starting in just a moment, but before that, I would like to thank our sponsor, Hout, for making this webinar session possible. Before I hand over to our moderator and CC Global Ambassador, Eric van Stockholm, to kick off the session, just a quick note to our audience. Keynote speaker will be taking your questions after presentation and towards the end of the session. Please submit your questions throughout the session using the chat box function. This session is recorded and will be available to watch on the careercommunity.com in the CC Media section. And with that, Eric, over to you.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Career Community knowledge sharing session webinar live. We're here with Joanne Kulikovska from Hout, and we would all together would like to give you a warm welcome from our side. And I would again thank you for joining in and being here, guys. Again, as I mentioned, we have today very good presentation of Joanna from Hout today, and we're going to talk about the topic how operators are bleeding A2P revenues from the tech giants. So we have a very nice insight from Hout on a data-driven investigation. So during this session, Joanna will give us and share with us a 15 to 20 minutes presentation, and afterwards we will discuss the topic a bit in deep during my exclusive panel session with her. So for the audience, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat box. We'll read them during the session and we'll integrate them into our discussion, and or we'll use them for the end of the panel discussion, and we'll refer to your questions gratefully, actually. So so Joanna, I'm happy to give you the floor, and maybe you can give as well a nice welcome to the audience. So Joanna, please.
Yes, sure. Thanks, Eric. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Joanna Kulikovska. I work as Head of Global Market Intelligence at Hout. A few words about Hout, about us and who we are. We are a technology company that helps our customers, and our customers are mobile operators, to stay in control of their entire messaging business and strategy while putting them in the center of this control. What I do at Hout is I work closely with our customers to understand their challenges and their needs, and translate it into the roadmap of our futuristic products. I'm really happy to be here today and to have this opportunity to present to you this investigation. We prepared, and happy to talk to you, Eric, as well. So yeah, welcome everyone. Really pleased that you have joined us today, and I hope you'll enjoy our discussion. So Eric, shall I start with the presentation?
Yes, Joanna, and thank you very much for your introduction for the people out there. And I'm seeing that a lot of participants are popping up, because I see them coming in and as participants. So we're really happy here with the CC webinar live session with you guys. So Joanne, yeah, please start your presentation. The floor is yours, and please enlighten us. So what the outcome is about the revenue leakage we see all over. So thank you.
With pleasure. Yeah, just let me present, and please do let me know if you can see my slides. Right. Okay. Yeah, so I would like to start this this presentation today with some numbers, because I'm a data analyst, I guess, and I work a lot with numbers and global market intelligence. And I want to bring a very interesting insight that has been recently shared by a company called Omdia. Omdia is a global research and consultancy firm that specializes in market intelligence. And they shared really interesting data about increase in grey route activity in 2020 as the result of the global pandemic. So the forecasted revenue loss of grey routes has totaled to 13.5 billion US dollars in comparison to 7.6 billion US dollars in 2019. This is, you see, a very significant increase in grey routes and their impact for mobile operator revenues. But when we talk about grey routes, what do we really mean, right? Grey routes is termination of A2P messages into an operator's network mainly by SMS aggregators that do not have a commercially binding agreement with the telco. To put it simple, it is termination that is just not being paid for in full, if being paid for at all. So what are grey routes used for? They're used to achieve the possible lowest price of A2P SMS message. So if we look at the increase, and it brings us to a question, why is the increase so significant? Why do we see such a big jump from 2019 to 2020? Well, we believe that there are a few factors that have impacted that. First of all, an overall increase in A2P traffic. The A2P traffic is growing, messaging market is growing year on year. We see 9% year on year market growth in 2020. Second factor is a constant downward pressure on A2P pricing globally. And some market players turning into grey routes, simply succumbing to the pressure of lowering their A2P cost in order to remain competitive. And the third reason we see that is important to that change is that as a result of the global pandemic, many operators had to also revise their budgets and sadly cut back on protection budgets. So what we noticed is that messaging companies that use grey routes mainly use techniques such as SIM farms in order to enter the network in an illegal way. But what is a SIM farm? Well, you might think, like Google, that a SIM farm is a very old video game. Go ahead, Google it. However, when it comes to the messaging industry and ecosystem, believe me, it's something much more serious. It's an industry on its own, and actually a very prosperous one. So in this particular context, we are referring to a SIM card, in a mobile device. So imagine a large group of those SIM cards connected to a very sophisticated computer server rather than individual mobile devices. And then imagine someone actually selling those SMS services and using this specific technical setup. Well, there you have a SIM farm. So how do SIM farms make money? I think it's an interesting question that we asked, and I think it's an interesting question to address, and for all of us here to understand, how do SIM farms make money? Well, SIM farm operators make money by simply charging for services, just like many other businesses. They operate by sending out thousands or even millions of text messages at a very low per message cost. So these SIM farm routes, due to the low price, also sadly attract more fraudulent type of traffic and more scammers that actually, as a result, increases complaints by subscribers that are normally directed to MNOs to investigate. So let's face it, it's a big industry on its own, and the reason why SIM farms continue to evolve and thrive is because they just simply keep being uncontrolled, and they keep abusing various loopholes like free on net, free off net, free roam like home arrangements between the operators. And while this creates a lower price point in the market, it actually kills the legitimate routes in terms of competition. So what do we want? So what is that we wanted to understand when we start our investigation is actually how much revenue is lost and how big is the problem? How vulnerable are the operators to the Simbox threat? So what we have done is that we've actually conducted a series of tests. You might want to imagine them as penetration or probing tests to assess the vulnerability of the network. So in the process, different OTT applications were used to trigger and generate traffic and perform the test into the network. And through our knowledge of the A2P business and market intelligence, we have managed to categorize this traffic and assess the legitimate entering traffic and the illegitimate entering traffic. And the results are shocking, actually. I think this is a big purpose statement you can see on the screen right now. So what we have seen is that MNOs are suffering a very big amount of revenue leakage to the international A2P SMS. And this revenue leakage is mainly to Simbox activity. But interesting question is, do all operators suffer the same? Is the situation the same for every network? So our findings were interesting, but actually something that we already expected to see. As over 95% of the international monetizable international SMS traffic is originating from major OTTs, the top 10 brands we've seen leaking were obviously the main tech giants, so the Facebooks and the Googles and the Instagrams and the Telegrams and the TikToks, and you name them. And that was something that we've seen common across the board. So the prop testing that we have done in Europe showed that unprotected MNOs were suffering a big amount of leakage, over 50% or even more in some cases of their international A2P because of Simbox activity. Just to give it some perspective, prop testing done in Asia region also shown that MNOs with basic SMS firewalls were seeing SIM leakage, which was only fairly better and averaging between 21 to 30% because of SIM boxes. So no network is ever immune to the threat of grey routes. But what we have found from experience is that SIM farms are usually the last illegitimate route used once the international signaling has been protected and all the other entry points of the network have been controlled. So what was our main conclusion? You might think that by having fraud present and grey routes present for so long in the telecoms industry, we might think that most of the MNOs would already have some level of protection in place. However, this is very often basic firewall technology with very little, close to no managed service. In reality, majority of the implemented firewalls are not actively managed. And that is mostly due to lack of operational resources and also knowledge on how to deal with the constantly evolving threat and attack. And as a result, it leads to network being susceptible to leakage, revenue erosion, and fraud. Interestingly enough, when quizzed on the management of the firewalls, only 25% of the operators have shared that they are using professional managed service, which leaves a very big part of the protected operators self-managing their own firewalls. So how we see it as HOT is that this is really a wake-up call needed for MNOs to finally take an action and invest in more intelligent and more sophisticated systems to identify and control the threat before its presence on the market increases even further. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to try to stop sharing it right now. Am I back?
Yes, you're so back. And Joanna, thank you very much, because it was quite, let's say, mirroring that that the people say, well, you know what, the leakage is there, and it's quite enormous, and the outcome from your analysis is that there's still a lot of things to do. So
shocking, isn't it? If you think about it, the numbers that we've seen are quite shocking. I was quite shocked myself.
Mm-hmm. And there's one thing, and then also a question came in from the audience, and thank you, Bert, for your question on this one. He mentioned that you showed us actually the 10 big guys, the OTTs, but Bert mentioned that there might be a problem. Is actually that the big names, the big tech, or the OTTs. That they care a little bit less about, let's say, the quality, nor the way the A2P messages are delivered. Is that true? And did you find, let's say, anything in your analysis?
I think it's a very interesting question. It's not an easy question to answer, and I will try to explain why. I think not all the OTTs are equal, and we can't probably apply the blanket rule to all. I mean, I work very closely for many years with many OTTs, and I know that some of them really do care about how their messages get delivered, and that's specifically because of security concerns. Which obviously makes sense. There are also, obviously we need to address that as SMS cost is going up for the OTTs, it becomes a very, very important cost line for them. So they might be incentivized to reduce that cost and spend on A2P messages, as it becomes very similar cost to, let's say, submarine cables or any other service that they use. And from a conversion point of view, a user conversion point of view, some OTTs might feel that, okay, if a message gets delivered and the user gets converted, then this should be enough. Yeah. But I don't think we can apply a general rule. I think some of them really do care. Some of them are entirely not aware of what is happening, because I think we're all here, we understand how the ecosystem works. Those brands and enterprises and OTTs, they are using a service provider, and that service provider might be using another service provider, such an SMS aggregator, who might be using another SMS aggregator. I don't think the enterprises, the brands, the OTTs are the ones to blame. Yeah, even if, you know, for them, it translates into reduction of the cost, they might not have enough of understanding of what actually a SIM farm is, how actually an operator is losing revenue. Yes, of course, there will be some that might have some level of understanding, but I don't believe all of them do. And I don't think they're the ones to blame.
No, okay, no, absolutely, and I understand. You just quickly mentioned actually the SIM farms, and also in your presentation, and a question just came up. Once the eSIMs are there, does it have any impact on the SIM farms, and what do you think? Nobody has the glass ball.
Nobody has a crystal ball. What I can say, and I mean, I'm speaking from my own experience and from experience of our great operations team that basically deals with SIM boxes or other grey routes on a daily basis, is that, as I spoke a little bit during the presentation, it's an industry on its own. And of course, as some markets are applying certain regulations to, let's say, limit the amount of SIM cards that can be procured or sourced by a specific individual, or to big restrictions, there have to be other ways of trying to source the SIM cards. So they are, if there's opportunities to source through virtual SIMs, eSIMs, IoT, you name it, there will be someone who will finally find a way how to abuse it. That's what I exactly think personally. But I don't think I personally have seen something like this so far, but it doesn't mean that we won't see it in the next couple of months. Yes, what we are dealing with on the SIM farm entry point in 2021 is not what we have dealt with 3 or 5 years ago, or even 3 months ago, to be honest.
And okay, thank you. You also mentioned, and I'm just referring again back to the chat box, because the chat box is exploding, guys. Thank you so much for your questions.
Oh wow, yeah, I can see that.
And I really hope that we in this session can all, let's say, answer to those questions. But one question which triggered me, which is from Felipe Castillo, and from LATAM. He says that in his experience, the main problem surges in the firewall deployment. So the MNO sometimes doesn't have, let's say, the knowledge, and the firewall is installed, ignoring all the specific considerations of the local regulations and the local market. What can an MNO do if the local regulations is against blocking actually SIM?
Yeah, it's
looking at LATAM, I think there is something in I think Ecuador that there's something that you're not allowed to block actually in the SIM box traffic.
Funny enough, I was sort of anticipating this question. I think it was a similar type of question. I was very happy to have a chat with our CEO yesterday, just because I was really anticipating that question to see how we actually deal with that in detail. You see, there's no one size fits all approach. Every market is different. Therefore, as a vendor, as a technology vendor, we need to be flexible. There will be markets with certain regulations. There will be markets where regulatory only allows a certain type of deployment or a certain type of blocking, and that will mean that we will have to face certain limitations because we will have to adhere to the local law. Yeah, we can't break it. That's why it's very important to have a multi-layered approach to any types of blocking, and especially on SIM farm blocking. You see, I'm not a technology specialist, but there are many ways you can detect and block a SIM box. And it's very important that you can work with different tools and apply all the specific technologies you can apply in this specific market. Well, when everything else fails, or in a situation and everything is impossible, this is where we really need to turn to putting a lot of effort in real life probing of the network and detecting the leakage based on tests. So let's say on a normal regular deployment, we'll do a certain amount of tests per day, per week, per month. We would just have to go over and beyond to make sure that we do a significantly bigger amount of tests to make sure that we detect the leakage, and then we will have to work with the operator to help us block.
No, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. There is never a one fits all
Sadly, no.
solution. Absolutely, no. And a question related to this from Ivan, I think from Croatia, is coming to you to say, well, okay, so how can HART actually, in the HART solution, actually, help here to fight, let's say, the SIM box and the SIM farms, and I mean, how can you help the people out there, because for sure they need help, and how can HART help them actually with it?
So how will we help is that we will assess the situation on the network. First, we will identify how the leakage happens. So we do it by assessing the security of the network by penetration testing, probing. Then, of course, we will have to have a detailed conversation with the operator in the light of what is allowed in terms of adhering to the local laws, privacy law, you name it. And then we will make sure that we will apply everything that can mitigate that threat, and also in the same time adhering to whatever the limitations can be. But because we specialize in revenue assurance and we specialize in blocking leakage, even if we have to block it semi-manually, we will do whatever it takes, because at the end of the day, we are on the same team, right? It's a partnership that we want to form with an operator, and when operator earns money, is how we make money as well. Therefore, we are always incentivized to increase the revenue and control the leakage. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I'm not going to lie that in some markets we will not be able to use every single technology available to us in-house, just because it might be simply not possible to deploy it in a specific market. And like I said, we will use our market intelligence, we will use our connections to the OTTs, to the wholesale market. We will use different approach to probing, including aggregated probing, and also more interesting. I probably talk about this for 5 hours, but essentially we would do whatever it takes to minimize that threat, keeping in mind that if regulatory doesn't allow a specific type of blocking, we might not be able to arrest it to 100%, maybe to 90%.
No, but as you said, I mean, there is so much, let's say, out there. I mean, if there's already 50%, you meant
will still be an increased incremental revenue for
every
the operator.
percent is already something. So no, absolutely, and great work. And
I think, Eric, what is important to mention is, because we are experienced in what we do, we try to speak to the operators, and obviously operators can talk to the regulators as well, that some laws can be changed, maybe not changed, but maybe revised to a certain extent if they actually protect the subscriber. Where we need to address the fact that actually SIM farms really contribute to SMS fraud. Yeah, and that can be, for example, a very interesting angle. So yeah, I think this is an important point to make.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and again, it's all partnerships and just to create, let's say, a better world.
And there are also many ways that the operators can look into mitigating the SIM box threat on their side. Let's say by introducing, I spoke about it a little bit earlier, mandatory registrations, as well as limits of SIM card an individual can procure. Obviously, while this creates an obstacle for the SIM boxes to source their cards, they're very highly incentivized business individuals, so they will find a way to source those SIMs. It won't completely eradicate the issue, but we also need to address the point that major KPIs for operators are subscribers and market share gains. And that creates sometimes in some markets a certain, I would even call it internal conflict to stop selling SIM cards. However, what we try to do is that we're trying to make our customers and our partners and future partners aware that this is almost creating, referring to Greek mythology, like a Trojan horse, inside their own network, because it actually creates revenue erosion.
No, absolutely. So let me ask you a question now. Because listening to your presentation, which is highly insight, and at heart you do I don't know how much, let's say, intelligence and analytics on everything to serve your customer best. So what does the data say about the value of A2P messaging? What can you share with us?
It's a big question, Eric. Thank you. I think what the data really says about A2P messaging is that A2P SMS is still by far the most reliable and trusted medium by subscribers, especially when it comes to critical notifications and 2FA. This is mainly because of its reach and opening rates, and because due to the standard across all the devices and all networks. To cut the long story short, it just works. Yeah, and the COVID-19 pandemic has proven it, and SMS has proven itself as a channel for critical communication. And that translates into this big growth, that 9% year-on-year growth at the time of global crisis, and A2P being one of those verticals of the industry that, well, first of all, it didn't suffer, but it even, went over and beyond the forecast. And what we've seen is that the organic growth of messaging use cases is just enormous, and we have seen it happening in real time during 2020 and now in 2021. And as A2P traffic is expected to grow across pretty much all industry verticals, especially being driven by banking, finance, social media, and messaging apps, this is obviously a great incentive for any players to enter this robust and complex and growing ecosystem to find their niche in order to grow and prosper with this market growth. So the answer to your question, what does the data say about the value of the A2P messaging? It's a growing market that is very much worth investing in, whether you're an operator, whether you're an aggregator, whether you're a SIM boxer.
So thank you. So another one. I mean, these issues have been around for some time. It's not something which is new. So why haven't they been mitigated by now? Because it's already there for a long time.
Yeah, you're right. It's been there for a long time. The A2P leakage, SIM farms have been present in the ecosystem for a while, but we need to say it again. It's a very highly incentivized and adaptable business with a very low financial and skill set barrier, right? So it's just very adaptive, and it constantly evolves and adapts. And therefore, it's quite difficult to eradicate. Because where SIM-box operate is essentially a P2P space, it creates issues in order to block it effectively if you don't have the right insights, if you don't have the right technology, if you don't have the right partnership. And because the SIM boxes always find a way to efficiently abuse operator packages like free on-net, off-net, international, or roam-like home agreements, it makes it very hard to control. So that's one. Yeah, I would say it's not so easy to completely eradicate it. The second, I touched this a little bit, it's the lack of regulation. I mean, it's called gray for a reason, right? It's not entirely illegal, legal, it's sort of in this gray space. And when we do see in some markets, the operators are looking to ensure there's mandatory registration and some limits on procuring or sourcing SIM cards. This is just an obstacle. Another obstacle is it's just not that difficult to conquer, because there will always be a way of sourcing SIMs, whether using fake IDs, stolen IDs, even corporate contracts or big IoT contracts. So this is just simply not enough to eradicate this issue, even changing the regulations. And I think what I would mention as the third point is that, I touched upon this a bit earlier, is that the KPI of operators is market share gain and subscriber growth, and that is difficult to stop selling SIM cards sometimes.
No, absolutely. So let's go to the operator side. So what can operators do to stem the tide of the financial loss of such issues? I mean, a lot of people especially in the audience would like to know, okay, what can we do about it? Because and what's needed? So what's your view on this one, and how can you help? How can you support?
First of all, I think it is very important for the operators to take this threat seriously, because it seriously hurts their revenues, and even more, it really seriously hurts the branding, especially if we consider the fraud impact. So there are a few things that operators can do. Definitely most important is protection and control. The network has to be protected and has to be protected across all the entry points. And specifically because we're dealing with so many SIM boxes lately, the firewall needs to have a big focus on controlling the SIM box entry point, and that as they are always the last resort for the aggregators to use when other types of leakage is under control. Yeah, so when choosing a partner, when choosing a SMS firewall, it's important to choose someone with technology and experience. I talked about it earlier, to apply this multi-layer and sort of multi-dimensional approach, especially when it comes to SymBox blocking. Basically, you need to be able to use a combination of technologies, because only the combination is effective enough to eradicate this very elaborated threat, and highly adaptable and adapting every single day. I think next thing is to understand that, I said it, I think probably 20 times, but I think it's the most important point I'm trying to make, is this is a constantly evolving industry, SymBoxes. So as the threat is constantly evolving, we need to evolve too in order to protect from it. So to gain the most from a protection solution, from a firewall solution, the system needs to be constantly optimized and managed on a daily basis to secure against those new threats. So if you look at the numbers that I mentioned before, in reality, vast majority of implemented firewalls is not managed. Therefore, I believe it's very important to partner with a vendor that has a very good set of managed services and can take up that burden and actually do this job effectively. So that brings me to the partnership point of view, because it's a two-way street, yes? And how we believe it is essential to combine the effective firewall and the managed services, but it's only the right partnership between us and the operator that will really bring, real results. Because as we are working constantly on a daily basis to block leakage, fraud, SymBoxes, only an operator, only our customers can give us a very important insights, especially related to SymFund. Yeah. And as we have the same goal, and this goal is to maximize the revenue, yeah, this combination of all those elements is my answer to your question, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely, and it's also good to work with companies who really do, let's say, have the intelligence and the data to see what's going out there in the market, and to adjust it, and to come up with a solution. So that's absolutely good. Thank you for your answer. What do you say? Shall we quickly check if there's some more questions in
yeah,
chat
that sounds great. Yeah.
Because with my right, for you guys left, I see a lot of boom moving up. So let immediately go to a question, and it's also from Mr. Pejakic, and it's what is the best experience for the MNO protection, to have a firewall deployed in the cloud, or point of international interconnection, or at the home base, so at the MNO premises directly? So where do I put it? In the cloud?
Reading the question.
Do I put it in the cloud, or do I put it at home?
We will deploy our solution on premises or in the virtual machine environment. And whether we're going to deploy it on premises or a VMware environment, it will always be sort of 360 ring fence protection across all the entry points. I think the majority of markets and regulations you have to deploy locally. Whether in VMware or on premises, it can't leave the country. And I think what are the characteristics of a good firewall solution? A firewall is just a firewall. I think how we look at this, we look at the comprehensive monetization suite of services. So when it comes to just say SMS firewall technology, the main good characteristics that I would mention is protecting across all the entry points. So visibility is key, and visibility of all the traffic is key, and being really effective on blocking of SymBoxes is very important. But characteristics of a good A2P monetization solution go beyond that because it requires constant management, constant analysis, very good probing. So that whole layer on the top of the core firewall technology is actually what brings the most of the revenue uplift beyond the time of deployment. You see, when you deploy any firewall, you see revenue uplift, obviously, because you block all the leakage. And then you leave it for another week, month, and the revenue will go down because there will be the SMS traffic is like water; it will always find the cheapest way to flow.
Yeah, I mean, the enemies are not sleeping; they keep on evolving, and
It's their
and
job.
sometimes it's their bread and butter.
I
of
think
course
we
do
need
not
to
agree with it.
realize it's a $1 million industry, millions dollar industry, and that's why it's so highly incentivized to constantly evolve.
Oh, absolutely. Well, question from Anurag, and thank you for that question. Would you say MNOs are becoming a bit greedy now to recover their past years of lost revenue, and if so, what will be the impact of the behavior of the A2P industry overall? What is your view on this one? Are they getting greedy, and do they want to?
I think greedy is an interesting word. It brings certain connotations, but I think we need to put it in perspective. Operators are companies, and those companies, want to obviously make profit, like we all do. And yes, I would agree with Anurag that they lost revenue along the years and being relatively late to the A2P opportunity. But we have to mention that COVID-19 has really impacted operators in a very significant way, with voice traffic and data, and revenues going down. So I do understand why operators would turn to increase revenues on the product lines that are growing, just from a business operation perspective. Yeah. So I think that makes sense. However, I do read the point of Anurag in this case. We see some markets are going up in SMS pricing quite significantly year on year, and that obviously creates a lot of complaints from the traffic originators, simply because their cost is going up. Yeah, and that's also natural, right? If your cost is going up, you're not happy. Now, what's acceptable or what's not acceptable is a difficult question to answer. I think there are different markets, and different markets, depending on penetration, will probably have different pricing elasticity. But at HOT, we believe that it is very important to not focus on thinking on A2P SMS and monetization and just one rate fits all. You see, how we work with our customers is that we actually provide them with smart technologies to make sure they can monetize new streams of traffic. So say if not all messages might be created equal for a brand. So say a Facebook or Google, different OTT, or a bank might be willing to pay a certain amount of money for a conversion of a user, so for an OTP message, but might not want to use the same channel, SMS as the channel for communication for, let's say, marketing traffic. And this is how we are trying to create new use cases by helping operators to implement pricing elasticity. And yeah, why is it not happening in so many markets? I believe it's because of the lack of the right systems in operators' infrastructure to manage that. And many operators are at the moment just afraid of their own A2P revenues cannibalization and reducing pricing for specific message streams or different traffic types, simply because they don't have enough insight and enough enforcement in place to control it. Therefore, they apply a very flat price strategy, and that for some markets is seen as it could create in the future a significant traffic decay. It's a long answer to this question. Probably haven't really answered this, Anurag. Sorry if I haven't. But I think the shortest way to answer is, yeah, what will be the impact on this behavior? It depends on the market, it depends on what the brands will do, and it depends how far the SMS pricing will go in specific markets. We see signs of some brands talking about potential, withdrawing from some SMS use cases. I personally haven't seen it happening in the markets we work in, but it doesn't mean it won't happen. So I think that a dialogue in the industry between the brands and the operator is needed in order to find a way how we can all enjoy the growth of this incredibly interesting market.
Again, coming back to the partnerships.
Coming back to the partnership. And I think actually, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to put operators in control of those relationships. See, there's a trend of operators outsourcing their messaging business to aggregators, and that basically takes them out of the equation of talking to the brand directly. Like, I believe there's no problem for our customer to talk to Facebook directly about new use cases and stimulating traffic growth, or doing the same with banking or local enterprises. But the problem for operators is the lack of the technology needed. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
We just hand them with the technology.
And missing some education, which you also can bring on the table, because what we see, and that's not only in what you do with regards to firewall and the managed services and everything you and the intelligence and data analytics you bring to your customers. So you see it in many use cases that education and telling them and spreading the message, hey guys, you're leaving a lot of, a bunch of money. It's lying there and it's actually yours, and we can help you to collect it or to minimize the loss, actually. Correct?
I think education is my second name, Joanna Education Kuligowska. If you have heard me anywhere or seen anything I've written, I always say the same. I think education, not just the operators, but the whole industry, is essential. And it's key. And then again, we're going back to the point of the partnership. So what we do, and actually this is what I do together with my team, is that we provide that piece of market intelligence. We try to connect our customers to the market, so they stay on the top of the global trends, on the top of the heartbeat of such exciting, SMS business industry. But yeah, I completely agree. It comes down to awareness and education very much.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Quickly tipping back to the previous subtopic matter, and a question came in. Is that how do you see, let's say, a little bit, because you were mentioning smart and the smart innovation. So I immediately think about AI, machine learning, and these kind of things. How do you see it, or how do you address it?
In terms of how we apply it within our technology?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say there.
Give us the scoop. Give us the scoop. Come on.
Yeah. So I think where we see machine learning and where we see AI is really on the content filtering side. Yeah. If you, I'm not sure how much you're aware of the techniques being used in the A2P industry, but you could probably imagine things can get really creative at times. So we see a lot of content manipulation, and I guess maybe 3-5 years ago, you've seen basic stuff like removing some words or removing brand name from the content, or changing some characters. But these days, there's so many ways of displaying a message and sending a message that it requires machine learning technology, because otherwise filtering wouldn't be effective. So when we implement traffic analytics and keyword filtering, yes, we do use machine learning and sort of AI technology. And I think this is as much as I can share at this point. Yeah.
No, I fully understand it. And thank you
But
already.
it is needed because it is needed because obviously as we are
it's inevitable.
against
It's inevitable as well.
Yes, because we're fighting against a smart system as well, not a manual person sending SMS using a mobile phone. We also need to make sure we stay on the top of the game, basically.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the operators would be happy, of course, to talk to you if they are not already talked to you, because I know your client base is quite big already. But there are always operators out there who do not do business with Hart and with yourself, Joanne. So I would like, first of all, to thank the audience for all your questions coming in, and keep on pushing those questions because we only have a couple of minutes going. Yes. So
bring them. Keep them coming.
No, keep on coming with those questions. So another question from Rashad, and thank you for that. Moving a little bit now to the future, and later on I will ask you about, let's say, the crystal ball, so your crystal ball. But before that, maybe as an interlude, what's the future you see and expect for this business, and you know, the maybe more specific on the continuous fight against the gray routes. So only pinpointing on the gray routes. How do you think that the future will look? I mean, we discussed on the what do you see coming there? I mean, difficult, I know, but
I think every day I wake up and I think I've seen it all, Eric. and then probably, you know, another threat happens. I just expect constant evolvement, really. And I mean, we've seen many things in the last, say, 3 years. We've seen virtual SIM farms. We've seen very sophisticated, you know, the first generation SIM farms were very basic, and they were basically very easy to block because you could block them based on sort of abnormal subscriber behavior. They were not making any calls. They were not sending any texts. They were not moving.
Easy to detect.
Easy to detect because you could flag it as abnormal subscriber behavior. These days, this is not the case. You have very sophisticated SIM farms that can move around in vehicles, for example, and can make calls, can originate and receive SMS, check credits, and do all kinds of stuff a normal subscriber would do just in order not to get blocked, simply. Yeah. So even on this, because we are again coming back to the same point, it's a business and industry on its own that is constantly evolving. So I expect it evolving further as the A2P messaging industry is growing. That will be growing, and as the channels of business communication are evolving too, we're seeing richer channels of communication. I'm stepping a little bit outside of A2P only and moving a little bit into broader spectrum of business messaging.
Sure.
They will find their niche there to survive and prosper too. Yeah, that's how I see the future. That as the channels of communications are evolving, the threat and the leakage will evolve together with them, and therefore we need to stay on the top of the game.
No, absolutely. We hear a lot about SMSing and flashing and these kind of things. And maybe does Hart have, let's say, a solution for let's say detecting and blocking the flash call verifications and these kind of things, because it's quite a topic nowadays.
Yes, of course. Yes, we so you mentioned smishing and then flash calling are different, completely different things. Yes. So on flash calling, yes, we can detect it. We have solutions to detect it. I think it's important you touched on the smishing. I think smishing is just one of the biggest headaches of operators, especially in Europe right now, where we're dealing with very much increasing smishing attempts on a daily basis. Again, Smishing happens mostly on SIM on SIM boxes, because of the price point, because of the of this niche, and you just need to block this very effectively. And yeah, once the network is blocked and the A2P price message goes a little bit higher, there's very little incentive, creates a little incentive to use it for fraud as well. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No. It's good because it's, you know, the flash call it is a, let's say, an inside topic.
I think it's an important. Flash calling is also not so great for the operators because it really takes the capacity and the bandwidth as well. So therefore, it's very important to be able to detect it and to block it, because it really clutters the network. So yes, we helped on this side as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, the key question, which everybody out there would like to know from you, Joanna, that is, how does the future look? What do you think is out there or will be out there, so we can fight the fraud a bit more, that there will be less revenue leakage, and there will be, by the end of the day, due to the more intense partnership with actually on the tech solutions and to have managed services from a reliable partner like Hot is, what's out there and what can we expect in the future?
I think the future is very bright for messaging, to be honest. We've seen it growing year on year. It's still a very reliable and trusted and growing business channel. As we see those channels evolving, each part of the ecosystem will be evolving. So operators need to evolve as well. I think over the last 2-3 years, I've seen much more education happening in the market. When we talk to our customers and partners, they're becoming more and more aware, very, very experienced as well in monetization, because at the end of the day, everybody's realizing the size of this opportunity. Yeah, I think Nick Lane was mentioning on this on MEF panel that
for Mobile Square.
Yes, rich business messaging might grow to $250 billion in 15 years. And I think this is a big number for everyone to focus. And of course, it's not just going to be SMS. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next, be it RCS, be it omnichannel, be it whatever comes next. The points that I want to make are the same: protection and control, flexible approach, good managed service, and the right partnership.
Absolutely, and you are there to find and to serve with the solutions you have.
And we're happy to help.
You're very happy to help. So with these, let's say, words, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to really thank you all out there for joining this webinar live session sponsored by Hot, and of course we had some very nice and very interesting insights from Joanna Kuligovska, and she's the head of the global market intelligence. So watch it, girls and boys out there. She knows what's business. So I would like to thank you, Joanna. Thank you so much for giving the insights and share everything with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a great experience being here. Thank you everyone for joining, for all the interesting questions. I'm always happy to talk about the industry. It's my big passion. Please do DM me on LinkedIn if you want to talk more about the market, about monetization, about anything. Send me an email. Happy to chat. It was a really great chat with you, Eric, as well. Lovely to see you again. And yeah, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Joanne, again, and thank you, Hot, for sponsoring this Care Community Webinar Live session, and we're really proud to host you, and thank you again for sharing let's say the high level executive insights with the audience out there. And again, audience, thank you very much, and stay tuned. from Carry Community, we have far more to come for you in the coming weeks, in the coming months. So stay tuned and stay with me. And with these words, I would like to give the word actually and the floor back to my colleagues at the studio in Berlin, beautiful city in Germany. So Aurelia, it's all yours. Thank you for now. Ciao for now. And from Joanna myself, thank you so much. God bless and stay safe.
Stay safe.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eric, for moderating, and thank you, Joanna, for your interesting presentation and making a great session today. Again, I would like to thank our sponsor, Hout, for supporting CC-Webinar.Live series. Dear audience, thank you for joining and submitting so many interesting questions. We are looking forward to welcoming you in both virtual and physical events this year. Please visit careercommunity.com and CC Events portal for more information. If you are interested in supporting and sponsoring one of our future webinar sessions, please contact CC team. For all the updates and fresh content, follow us on social media and also subscribe to CC GCCM Telegram channel to receive exclusive invitations to our upcoming CC Webinar Live sessions. Stay safe and healthy. Goodbye.